Hello and welcome to Zerift Bakes 5. Now these are the 5 most characters I play most in D&D, and they're my 5 most favorite characters. For one reason or several, these are my 5 I choose to play. We'll start out number 1, being the first character I've made for 5e, which was a tribute to some of the first characters I made for 2nd edition when I first started playing. His name is Marcus. He's a high elf wizard. Now, I used an elvish name generator, and it said Marcus is an elvish name, so that's the name it gave me. So, don't know if that's even accurate, but I do use him a lot. He's he's fun to play mechanically, but also because it was just fun just trying to figure out what exactly his personality and quirks were. So his backstory is basically that he's a elf that was apprenticed under a wizard for all his life until his master or mentor disappeared, and then he goes out eventually looking for clues to where he is. So it was a fun character to roleplay and so forth, but I don't think he came to his own until I played. There's a special module that if you watch Acquisitions Incorporated and went to the theater to play it, not play it, watch it. Yeah. Watch Acquisitions Incorporated and watched it in theaters, you have gotten this adventure module called Cloud's Giant's Bargain. And it is a fun adventure, and I think that's when he finally came to his own as this like very uptight, I wouldn't say snooty, but very uptight wizard. He's just researching things, he's easily agitated and so forth. So he was fun to get down and explore him and try to get him down. So that would bring us to number 2, is the second character I created for 5e, which was, I knew immediately after playing a high elf wizard that I wanted to play a dragonborn paladin. Now, I played him a lot longer than I did Marcus, and his name is Torin, because I just picked a name out of the player's handbook. But so it was me learning Adventures League and how to play D&D, for getting back into it. And so I used Culture Shock for my naiveness to the game and the world of Faerun, which I was not familiar with. So, and it actually worked out well, and that's why I think he's one of the more fun characters. He gets in situations he doesn't intentionally tend to, so forth. He's unintentionally silly. But he was created originally for the Tyranny of Dragons campaign setting. So, he's basically a gold dragon that was punished by Bahamut to become a excuse me, I'm a little congested today. Punished to become a mortal in humanoid form until he redeems himself to become back a gold dragon. So he's out this way trying to redeem himself, but he ends up making mistakes and making things situation worse and so forth. So it's really kind of unintentional comedy to him, but he's one of my favorites because like he's just fun to play and so forth, and it's just Yeah. Coming at number 3 was, ironically, the third character I created. Which was, he doesn't really have a name because I keep changing his name. He used to be Mitch, and then he went to Oral, and then he went to so forth. But, and his backstory keeps changing over and over again because I keep trying to find the right backstory for him. But basically, what makes him one of my favorites, though, is his characterization, because he's like, when you think of a cleric, you think of this holy man telling you, oh, don't do this, do that. So I was inspired by one of the Canterbury Tales by Chaucer, when it described a monk being indifferent to a rest of his order, where they would half starve themselves and so forth. He would feast themselves and just live life, and he felt that was a gift from God. That's the monk's tale. But, and I thought about that, and I was like, I want to make a character that was indifferent from what people think clerics are, and just, a guy who just lives life. And he's very, very, very vocal about his opinions, very rude, and just, something completely different from what people think of a cleric. So he lives life because that's how the gods create life, so thus live it, and so forth. And he's just a little bit of a party animal, but not entirely. He pulls pranks and so forth. He loves messing with his party members when they get in trouble. He doesn't get them in trouble, but let them get in trouble. But he does let them dangle dangle the worm on the hook for a while, so to speak. There's stories I can explain that one. Actually, there's a lot of stories of all these characters. And, yeah. So he's a fun character because he's indifferent to type, basically. That's what makes him fun. So, Command 3 is so, quick recap. Number 1, it was Marcus, my high elf wizard. Number 2 was Torin, the dragonborn paladin. 3 was my light domain cleric, human cleric. Now at 4, coming at 4, is not the fourth character I created, but a character I created entirely. This was last year I created this character. And he's a paladin, seemingly human paladin. But he was created by inspiration of what Robert Jordan, the author Robert Jordan, said once about people living out in country towns versus what Tolkien said they were versus what they really were. Like, if you tell them, oh, let me tell you about your destiny, you come on this grand adventure, they would basically say, great, buy him a drink, then go out the back door and just run away. So I was like, that inspired me to create this character. And I was like, I wanted to make a character that felt more real than other characters. So basically, it's part of his shtick, but basically, a mysterious stranger comes up today and says, let me tell you about your destiny. He's like, and he's this blacksmith who just goes, oh, that's great. Let me get my things. And he takes his things, runs out the back door, and he's just running from this guy on an adventure, trying to outrun his destiny, as it were, because he has the plans to, and this is the second thing it was inspired by, was how a lot of people make plans to do these certain things in life and end up going in a different direction. So it's kind of like he has plans to become this great blacksmith, but life keeps getting in the way and moving him in another direction. So that's kind of like why I like him, is because the thought out, the process, the backstory, he's really thought out, and And I've written, of course, NPCs for him, like characters like his mother and stuff like that, but people he turns to that are like family to him. But I don't know if you're allowed to do that or not, but it's a fun character. Now, coming at number 5 is my complete opposite of the last character, which is Zuramar, my Drow Warlock. Now, I've talked about him a lot, and he's the one I'm most recently playing in a campaign. I think it's probably the last of the characters I created that just new. So it's only fair he comes last, and he's an interesting character, to say the least. He has an interesting backstory and an interesting way about him. Like, you can peel layers on this character and look at him. Basically, he's a good drow, but I wanted to do it in a way. I wanted to do it in a way that was different from what everyone else was doing, and making basically Dritz Durden. And I didn't want to make Dritz Durden. I want to make a good character that was his own thing. So I had to figure out a way to give this character a uniqueness that was different from Dritz Durden and make him his own character. And what I came up with was give him a childlike innocence, like a naiveness to things. And he's basically starts out as a servant who makes a wager with a matriarch that who would outlive who, and he goes and makes a deal in the Forbidden area to make for a pact of immortality, which is the Pact of the Undying from Sorkos Adventurer's Guide, the Skag, if you will. And she gets punished for letting, I quote, Loth, how could you let this buffoon outwit you, and just gets punished and turned into Drider, and he gets become a lord of a entire wealthy royal family within the Drow society, which is abnormal because males don't usually obtain that. So he obtained it under unusual means. But here's the thing about him. He's what I consider true comedy. And what I was raised as true comedy is you have the face of comedy and the face of tragedy go hand in hand. So it is not a comedy if it has no tragedy to it, no drama. So that's the way I wrote him. So it was, in a way, it comes back to become drama, is that he doesn't enjoy it for very long. He gets having these nightmares from the pact he made, calling him, moving him to where he goes, and so forth and so forth. And here's where it makes things get interesting. Because when I play him, I don't know who the patron is, or he made a deal with, or so forth. Who he made a deal with was a servant of the patron, and he doesn't know who it is. Because I think one of the guys at Critical Role said, if you write a character, don't write an ending. Hide the ending so you can learn from this character. So I hide it so he doesn't know what this being wants from him or who it is. Which I think is an interesting thing to go about doing. So he gets these nightmares. He has to go to the surface to find out what the hell is this pact, what's it want with him, who is this patron, who does he want with him. And And there was a lot of other interesting things, like that's basically a brief understanding of his backstory. I introduce it is that he's basically outwits a matriarch and becomes wealthy, but is short-lived because his pack keeps calling him to go to places and do things. So, but beyond that, it gets a little deeper. Like, you find out why he's able to maintain his innocence from a drow society is his mother, who's fought for it to raise him as such, because she's secretly serving another goddess. And his father and brother were part of a sort of a religious liberation front that fought to free the male from the male drow from the tyranny of the female drow and create their own society, their own enclave, if you will. So there's things like that, and there's something I added recently. I talked to DM about it because and this really came from when I thought about it. I learned more about the drow. It was like, at the age of 20, they graduate from the academy, and then they go to the Temple of Loth to give themselves fully to Loth. And that's like at 20. And Zuramar is like 100 years old, so it's... so that's a long time. And in a society like this, living in it, you think there would probably be a few bastard children in his life. So I added that recently because it felt unreal that he's gone his whole life without having a child. It's just within 80 years. That's a long time to go without a child. It just didn't seem that real, especially in a society like Drow. So I had that recently, so that was interesting. What else did I add about? Yeah, he has a very but if I were to describe Suramar in a few words, I would say the old phrase, everybody sees a clown laugh, but no one sees the clown. Yeah, let me start over. Everyone sees the clown laugh, but no one sees the clown cry. So, in a way, he has this innocence, this charmingness, and he seems very childish around other adults and so forth. But in reality, it's almost... He is like that, but he's almost uses it as a mask to hide his sadness and his fears about this pact he's made and what's going to do to him, what's going to happen to his family, what's the end game, what's this going to look like, is he going to be the same person as the end, and so forth. And he gets these nightmares, and he just wakes up in cold sweat, and so he's got this fear about him, and he's actually a very interesting character in my opinion. So and both his father and brother are dead, so yeah, I forgot to mention that one. But yeah, he's an interesting character, and I really love him, and I enjoy playing him because you get to explore with the DM, I described his kids in one word. Like, one's mischievous, one's stern, one's responsible, the other's innocent. And yeah, it's basically, and he creates this whole thing around these characters just from that one word. And it's like, so I point in direction I want, but also get the leeway of freedom to the DM to create what he wants. And I think that's what makes it so fun, is Zuramar is a collaboration effort and so forth. So he's just a real fun white drow to play like that, and so forth. But yeah, that is my big 5. The 5 most characters I play the most and enjoy playing. There's probably stories about them and so forth. So thanks for listening. This is Zerift signing off.